Hello, this is Angela with Parkos Permaculture. I am standing in front of our newly finished shed that took us forever to build and took me days and days to paint. And I will have like a little shed tour update very shortly. But today I actually want to talk about supplementing your poultry's feed and how I do that here and how some of what we're doing is changing. So I made a video earlier where I talked about the way we source a lot of our feed, so we don't actually have to buy that much purchased commercial poultry feed. And so any scraps left over from children, any things they don't finish, and any of the scraps left over from food preparation are all perfectly suitable to feed to our poultry. Now, I know you may live somewhere outside of the United States, and so you may not be allowed to feed kitchen scraps to poultry, but here it's totally acceptable in your backyard flock. It's completely legal and fine. I grow lots of stuff in the garden. So this time of year, things that I'm feeding them every day are a whole big bowl of cherry tomatoes. I plant 2 or 3 extra cherry tomato plants in my garden specifically for poultry feed. Lots of kale, lots of chard, any extra blackberries, any extra berries go to the birds. Earlier in the year, I would be feeding them things like gummy berries, and I would be feeding them things like marionberries. Now it's the early blackberries, figs, and mulberries. Those are my 2 main fruit crops. But also, again, anything else that's coming out in small quantities, I make sure that I grow extra to share with wildlife and to supplement my poultry feed. Because we have added more birds to our flock this year, we added 2 more ducks in anticipation of perhaps some of our very, very geriatric ducks transitioning, crossing the Rainbow Bridge, but they just keep plugging along, very happy, eating, content, not losing weight. Our 12-year-old duck has even been laying eggs this summer. And because we added turkeys, which goodness, they eat an awful lot, we're having to rethink a little bit. So what I've discovered having turkeys, which they are getting very big, is that they need about 8% more protein than chickens. Now, I've been raising mealworms for them. I also try and dig up worms in the garden. While earthworms are not native to the Pacific Northwest, they are abundant in our soil. Recently, I went to Concentrates Northwest. I tend to go there once every year or two. We got some commercial feed. They have all kinds produced locally in Oregon and Washington that are organic, or you can get non-organic, all kinds of mixes and blends. I have a whole video on that. So I decided I would start making my own scratch, which I'm going to be soaking and I'm going to be sprouting. I did this in the past a lot more when I had fewer children and life was a little bit less hectic. And I want to return to that habit because I think it really provides enrichment for the birds. It increases their fat and protein in their diet, and it gives them something to occupy their time, right? Enrichment essentially is entertainment and food together. Well, it doesn't have to be food, but in this instance, it is food. And so I'm going to give them the scratch that they're looking for. Now, there's lots on the internet about how to mix your own poultry feed. And there's lots of hotly contested recipes, lots of debate about whether you should or should not mix your own poultry feed. Because the reality is it's usually not cheaper. And it's really easy to mess it up. Now, in a system like mine, where my birds get lots of free ranging, they get lots of garden produce, they get a lot of goodies added to their diet, I'm not worried about it. But if you are strictly feeding only your own homemade mix of grains to your birds, I would be concerned about whether they are getting proper nutrition or not. Obviously, commercial feeds are formulated so that they meet the basic nutritional requirements of the birds that you're feeding them to. That's why there's layer feed, there's chick feed, there is the larger mixed flock feed. And so all of those things are really important. So this is not going to be the main composition of their diet, but it is going to be a daily treat. I'm going to take all of these whole grains and I'm going to soak them and let them sprout a little bit. But this is just a supplement. It is not their full feed. When we have grains that are soaked and are allowed to ferment a little bit, they become more digestible. They become more nutrient available to our birds. And also, they enjoy them more, right? They have a higher water content, which is important in the summer as well. So I'm going to show you what I'm mixing up here. And let me flip the camera around and show you the whole process. Okay, so the first thing is that you want to have adequate storage. It's really, really important when you're going to the feed store and you're buying a whole lot of grains to underestimate how much storage space you will need once you have all of your scratch mixed up. it's really good to get these galvanized containers. Now these are 31 gallon and I find they work really well. I also have some 20 gallons. So I want to go ahead and mix all of my grains in here. This is the time when you want to add your grains, and then if you're going to add any vitamins or any other dry amendments, you want to mix them in. Okay, so let's look at some of the grains that I got. Again, I would normally get white millet. I find all the birds, especially chickens, really like it. And as I said, recipes recommend using field peas or lentils, and my birds just don't like them even when they're really sprouty. They're not their favorite. So if you're at the store, sometimes organic is not that much more expensive, and it's nice to support organizations that are trying to do better, right? This is actually milled locally, and this is just 100% barley. Now there is livestock grade and there's human grade, right? So this one makes sure that you know that this is livestock grade. It's not human grade. Sometimes at the restaurant supply store, human grade is actually cheaper. So you might want to just check your local area. That black oil sunflower seed, this is going to provide extra fat. I don't want to give my birds too much of it. I also got whole wheat berries. This I did not get organic because they didn't have an organic option. When you're getting those whole grains, these also are milled locally, I believe. When you're getting these whole grains and you soak them, they will sprout after a few days. Now, how fermenty you let them get is up to you. You want to make sure that they do not mold, that they are fermenting, they are starting to sprout a little bit. If you are only letting them soak overnight, they will absorb quite a bit of water, and your birds will really enjoy that in hot weather. When we are sourcing food for our birds, we get whatever is cheap, whatever is local, whatever is available, and that means the composition of treats may change. Right now, wheat, sunflower seeds, and barley, but in the future it may be something like spelt and white millet. If you switch up what the composition is, that keeps it interesting for your birds. In the future, I would only mix 1/3 of each bag together at a time, then the next third of each, and then the next third. When you mix full bags together, it can be really difficult to reach the material at the bottom. So next time I would do it in batches, but here you can see we're mixing all of the bags together. Again, a lot of these mixes include things like lentils and peas, and my birds just don't like them. I have tried many times to soak and sprout peas and lentils and mung beans and things like that, and they've just not eaten it unless they've been really hungry, and I don't want it to go to waste, and I don't want it to be left uneaten and attract rodents, so I've left those legumes out this time. But you may find it works for your birds and adds the extra protein that you're looking for. For us this time, we're keeping it simple with the barley, the wheat, and the sunflower seeds. In the future, if I can get access to things like spelt and millet and other grains, I will use those. It just depends on what is available and what is in my budget. Again, these are treats. It is not something I am looking to provide the full nutrition for my flock. I'm going to fill my scratch bucket about 1/3 full of the grains, take it in the house, add 1 tablespoon of yogurt, a little bit of molasses, and some warm water, and let it soak at least 24, if not 48 hours. Okay, so here is my bucket of fermented grains. You can see it gets a little bubbly and foamy. This is about 36 hours in here, and you can tell it's starting to ferment. It smells a little bit yogurty. Now, I did use a tablespoon of yogurt with active cultures to jumpstart this. Some folks just let it naturally ferment, and yeast will start to grow in here, and it'll smell a little bit bready. It shouldn't smell bad. You can see here it's a little bit bubbly and a little foamy. And also, I filled this bucket about 1/3 full, and you can see how much the grains have swollen. You can see the barley and the wheat and the black oil sunflower seeds. You can see how much they've swollen up. The birds get a lot more nutritional value out of grains that are at the very least soaked, and even more so when they're fermented. You can see everybody knows I've got good things in the bucket. I don't know what it is, but when you hold it in your hand, it's somehow like the food is better and more special than the food on the ground. Okay, thanks for watching. If you have any favorite treats that you feed your poultry, if you have any of those things that you either grow for them in the garden, like how I grow a lot of tomatoes and greens, and in the winter I feed them things like potatoes and roasted pumpkin out of my garden. If you have any of those things that your flock really loves, I would love to hear about it in the comments. If you have things that you like to mix up in your scratch, or you like to mix up and find your birds really enjoy in a soaked and sprouted treat mix, I would also love to hear about that in the comments. So thank you for watching today, and I will be back very soon. Probably tomorrow. I've been putting out between 5 and 7 videos a week, so probably tomorrow. I hope that you are staying well and safe. Thanks for watching. Pretty yummy, huh, guys? Okay.